What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Takeover with your girl, Shay McCray, here on FUBU Radio. And y'all already know Monday morning, inside the room with State Representative Brandon McGee. We can't miss out a moment with him. How you doing, Brandon?
What's going on, Shay? Once again, thank you so much for joining Inside the Room with myself, State Representative Brandon McGee, where we discuss politics, leadership, and culture. Shay, what's good?
It's good. Listen, let me tell you, talking about for the culture. Listen, I'm so excited for this guest that we have in the building today. I mean, it's so much needed, especially for the culture of our Black men today and what's going on. You know what I mean? We need this. So I'm just so excited for our guest today. I know I always talk to you every Monday, but this Monday, it ain't about you, okay? It's about...
Let me just say this. In this week's episode, as you already mentioned, we will discuss the unfolding of the current COVID-19 pandemic and its contribution to mental health, or its impacts to mental health and racial traumas within the Black community. So, as you've already said, alongside us this afternoon, we have none other than our special guest, Dr. Alicia Hodge. She is better known as Dr. Alicia, and she's going to slay us today with a lot of information. And I'm just so very excited as we continue to highlight Black Lives Matter. We also must put an emphasis on the fact that Black mental health matters too. And then, later on, we'll talk a little bit about Donald J. Trump, and what is to be expected during this impeachment trial. So, as always, I'm so glad that folks are joining the both of us as we gather people from all walks of life to step inside the room in efforts to gain perspective on how we can educate and uplift our communities. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Shay. And
listen, let me say something. For one, you said Trump. I haven't, I'm so happy his name is starting to window out. I keep forgetting about it. It's like twice a week now I'm hearing his name. But let me tell you the rest. Let me tell you, the way she talk about slaying your anxiety. You know what? Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to welcome Dr. Alicia. All right. You guys keep it locked. Don't go nowhere. It's your girl, Shay McCray. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Takeover with your girl, Shay McCray. And if you just now tuning in, I'm sitting here, of course, inside the room with State Representative Brandon McGee. But today we are super excited because we got a special guest today. So, Brandon, you know what? I'm going to let you go ahead and do the honors and go ahead and welcome in this beautiful guest of ours.
Yeah, so on today's show, Inside the Room, we have Dr. Alicia Hodge. She is a Connecticut native now.
Yes.
In DC with over 10 years of clinical experience across various treatment settings with adolescents as well as adults. Her work is really centered around cognitive behavioral theory with a focus on facing, challenging, and overcoming the thoughts that really hold us back, essentially anxiety in most cases. Dr. Ashley has helped hundreds of people. She's also transitioned into this virtual space where she's holding group setting therapeutic sessions. And you know what? I don't even want to steal her thunder, but I would like to welcome Dr. Alicia to Inside the Room with myself, State Representative Brandon McGee, and of course, Shay McCray, as we continue to take over FUBU Radio and everywhere else. But I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ashley. Welcome on in.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here with the both of you. This is very exciting. As Brandon said, I am a psychologist and I specialize in anxiety. And really, for me, as we talked, I heard you guys say before something about for the culture, and really that's really what I'm doing it for. And so it is my duty and honor to be present here today.
Wow.
And by the way, she is Black. I just want y'all to know.
I am. I'm Miss.
So
I'm
really
is.
quickly, Doc, I really want to jump into the conversation, and I want to kick it off with, we know the COVID-19 pandemic has plagued our communities with many succumbing to the virus, literally dying. I lost my grandma last year in March as a result of COVID. But, from your perspective, what ways can we heal from the heal and work rather towards social emotional recovery? I know that there is 1 in 645 Black Americans who have died from COVID. Can you talk a little bit about the impacts of COVID-19 from your perspective in your field? Have you seen an uptick in clients wanting to talk to you? And just help us understand, where are we? What's going on?
Yeah, we're still, essentially, in my opinion, in a state of crisis. I mean, COVID definitely has my phone ringing off the hook. I think for more than one reason. Like you mentioned, people are facing a lot of grief and trauma, a lot of anxiety, as you can imagine. But even the fact that we're home with not that many outlets like we used to have, a lot of people are kind of stuck with their thoughts. They're noticing that I'm not able to handle this as well as I thought that I was going to be able to. And really, I think the way that we begin to start healing is to acknowledge that mental health is just as important as physical health. So the same way that we're valuing our physical health now because of the pandemic, I think is just as important to realize that it's not weak or some sort of personal deficit, to realize like, this is a lot for me. Yeah. So really, I'm here to sort of talk about and really drive home the point of like stigma, especially in the Black community, is really holding us back. Yeah. So if you didn't know today, I want to remind you that it's okay to not be okay.
With that being said, I know you said that one of the things is acknowledging that you have anxiety. Well, part of the problem is that a lot of us do not know the signs or when there is a problem. Could you walk us through that on when to what should you do when? Because if you Google, I sleep too much or whatever, so many things come up. You get what I'm saying? Or if I'm tired, or I'm a little fatigued, a lot of things come up. How could we self-identify within ourselves before we get to the doctor like, hey, we got a problem?
That's a good question. So I would say that typically people, when they think of anxiety, the symptoms are things like your heart racing a lot, having trouble breathing, but there's other things like feeling tingling in your extremities, so like your fingers and your toes. It could be a sense of being on edge and restless, a lot of muscle strain, especially around your neck and shoulders. Yep. It could be not having an appetite. But one of the main things that I tell people to look out for is irritability. So I know that with COVID and being home, you can be a little more on edge, but oftentimes anxiety can come through as being very irritable and annoying.
So it's funny you say that, because I'm sorry, Brandon, I just want to touch on this because this is something I'd never shared, but I do suffer from anxiety. So this was deep for me. I'm not gonna lie. And the reason why I asked that, because I'm a woman over 30 something. We're gonna leave it like that, and I had experienced night sweats. And of course, the first thing as a woman you think about is menopause, and that was not my case. I was so far away from the menopause stage, it had nothing to do with it. And that was one of the reasons why I asked that specific question. I had to really dig deep and say, hey, I'm having anxiety in my sleep. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Like I would wake up in sweats. So with that being said, I know a lot of times we like to go to Google University. Where are some of the best? Where is some of the best? Where would you like to send, or where should we try to gather the information to help identify that issue?
That's a good question. So I would say that there's a website called ADAA. I want to say it's .org. It's the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. So they have a lot of nice, simple resources that they ask you some questions, walk you through some basic information about anxiety and depression, because they can exist together. And I'm glad that you mentioned the thing about sweats, because oftentimes, we think about worry and a lot of fear. That's the mental representation of anxiety. But a lot of us get the physical symptoms because we're disconnected from what's going on in our mind, or we want to push that to the side. And your body will tell you like, okay, well, something's going on.
Yep. So true.
Doc, could you, before we take another break, could you just really talk about the stigma that comes along with mental health, anxiety, et cetera, especially in communities of color? And again, we're inside the room right now with Dr. Alicia. We're so very happy that you all have joined us, as always, every week at 4 o'clock. But again, we're talking about COVID, pandemic, mental health in the Black community. Doc, can you help us with that?
Yeah, certainly. So I definitely want to, before I even start my answer, say that there is a level of mistrust within the communities of color that is deserving. And so I think that we have to always keep that in mind when we hear about stigma. It's not necessarily something that we came up with, but I do want to point out, where we are now with providers, like there are databases specifically just for therapists who are Black. And so I want people to feel comfortable and open to reach out to those providers. But honestly, I think the stigma essentially comes from tying this idea that mental health or mental illness, for that matter, is about weakness, is about something that, if you just try harder, you can overcome.
Yeah.
And I made on my Instagram, I made a video the other day and I was saying, like, don't you believe that if people really wanted to just talk themselves out of these things, they would?
Right.
Yeah.
What is your Instagram page handle?
It's Help Me Hodge. So HELPMEHODGE.
I'm not gonna lie, Dr. Alicia. I definitely. It's so funny you tapped on it right on the head. Like I really believe that I was one that could talk my way out of it and pray and I'm not gonna lie. I still do believe that and I believe that if you could grab the mind but it's this level of strength that is underneath it that has to come from, and that's where that I was building that, but still blindsided to what the real issue was. So I'm so happy you touched on that. It is so true. Women tend to acknowledge it, but why is it so difficult more so for men?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Socially, right, men are even more so held to a higher standard, and I'll add to that Black men to be a man. When little boys fall down, we say, stop crying, get up. And when little girls fall down, we say, let me see what happened. Are you
kiss
okay?
Your boo-boo, what I'm saying? Yeah.
And so I think, just socially it's not acceptable. It also, like I said before, it feels like it's the opposite of strength. So I think for men, it's much more difficult to say, like, something's up, I'm not right, and I need help on top of that.
Yeah. Good point.
Hey, you want to pay some bills?
Yeah, let's pay some bills. Sometimes, like I said, it's hard to keep a good, have some fun with this because this is so serious. But I will tell you this, Dr. Alicia. I mean, slay your anxiety. I will be coming to see you. If you got a title like that, I'm coming to see you.
Listen, I was texting her earlier. I said, seriously, I'm going to need a session. Like, I have no problem with saying I need to talk to someone that's qualified that can help me navigate through the trauma that I'm faced with, especially during this time of COVID. So anyway, I think it's time to pay a few bills, and then we'll wrap up this conversation shortly.
All right, you guys keep it locked. Don't go nowhere. It's your girl, Shay McCray. Welcome back to the Takeover with your girl, Shay McCray, here on FUBU Radio. And we inside the room with State Representative Brandon McGee. And today is a special show because we're speaking in reference to things that are not addressed freely, as even on radio, and we have today the pleasure to speak to Dr. Alicia from Slay Your Anxiety, and she has a lot of insight of just specializing in helping people with anxiety and identifying, even yourself, Brandon. You say you're going too, so that means a lot. Like, I love to see men like yourself to step up and say, "Hey, I'm going," and here we are on radio, and you're like, "I'm going. I need a session." I'm like, that's deep.
Listen, again, thank you so much for joining Inside the Room with Brandon McGee. Y'all make sure to follow me, _BLMJ_ on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. Y'all follow me. But, Shay, I am at an age now where peace and happiness is important. And as a state representative, a father, a husband, a community leader, a church worker, it weighs on you after a while. And if
I
you
could
don't
only
have the
imagine.
opportunity to converse with licensed professionals like Dr. Alicia, who could help you navigate through some of these challenges, shame on you. So
Shame on
today,
you.
we've been talking about that, and I'm just so excited that we have a person in that of Dr. Alicia to be here to unwrap, unfold, and really shed light on the importance of mental health in the Black community.
So it's so fun. I'm not gonna say it's funny, but I know pastors have the heart. They probably got the worst time dealing with this stuff than the rest of the world because of what expected from them. So with
Yeah.
that being said, once again, thank you again, Dr. Alicia, for being here with us. We really appreciate you here because this is really big for us. But tell us about a time where you had a hard time trying to get someone to identify their issue so they can receive the help that you offer.
Okay. So one of the things that comes across the most when I'm working with new clients is that they come in, they tend to say like, I have all these things going on, but it could be worse. And I'm really adamant about stopping them and saying like, listen, when you do that, you're invalidating all of your pain. It can always be worse. You could have one arm, you could have no arms, you could have no legs. And so it's important to realize that it can be both. Like when we talk about gratitude, you mentioned, I know it's probably difficult for pastors. Like it can be both. You can be grateful, but you can also be frustrated. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. I often tell people, don't operate in the extremes. Don't tell yourself it could be worse. Like it can be both. I can be happy that I'm safe and sound during COVID, but I can also mourn the fact that I can't go out and do things. And so I think when you're looking at yourself, be careful not to cut yourself off or tell yourself like, you know what, this is bad, but it could be worse, or it's been so much worse for me before in the past. Just evaluate where you are now and say, if I don't feel like myself, if I don't feel like I'm having more good days than not, then this might be the time that I need to talk about somebody. Or excuse me, talk to somebody and acknowledge that things need to be different for me.
Wow. Wow. Shay, I think we probably can talk for another hour or so on this very important topic.
Wow.
I'm just delighted once again to have Dr. Alicia on with us to really unpack mental health, Black therapists, and I mean it's just absolutely amazing. So thank you so much, Dr. Alicia, for your time. Thank you for the work that you do. I'm sure you are underpaid, and we just appreciate the gift that God has afforded you, and you're using it. So thank you so very
And the
much.
next time you in Atlanta, girl, invite me to one of them seminars. I need to come out.
Oh
So,
yes. I hope
please.
when the world opens up, all are welcome.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
But I will say in the
Well,
meantime, I'm going to offer virtual options. I've been trying to figure out how to pivot during the pandemic. So I do want to be available to everyone.
Can you just share with us a little your website, how to remain in contact with you? We know your saying is slaying your anxiety. Really quickly, if you can just work that in and let our listening audience know how to remain in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure. So I am on pretty much all social media platforms at Help Me Hodge, as I said earlier. So that's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I do like to give a lot of tips on Instagram. I find a lot of humor. I love a good anxiety meme. And my website itself is www.slayyouranxiety.com. If you go there and sign up for my newsletter, it'll keep you updated on all the things that I'm doing. You'll get to learn more about working with me, the groups that I offer. And also, I've been featured on a bunch of podcasts, great episodes and opportunities such as this. So I do have a media page that you can kind of look me up or ask me to be a guest on a part of your own show. And ultimately, Slay Your Anxiety came from an episode, for those who might be familiar with the Therapy for Black Girls podcast. My first episode, we called it Slay Your Anxiety, and I took it and I ran with it because I was like, this is it right here. So the trademark is in the works.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, once again, if you're just tuning in, this State Representative Brandon McGee, you're inside the room where we bring folks from all walks of life, once again, to uplift our community, to educate. So, Shay, I felt like it was a session for us.
I know it was a session for me too. I'm sitting here telling her my problems, but I will tell you this, Dr. Alicia, your name really hits home with me because slay slay your anxiety, you know. So my fans are called the Shay Slayers. So I just want to put that out there. You know what I'm saying?
Look at that.
Thank you
Look
so
at
much
that.
once again for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time out to sit with us and doing it for the culture. You guys keep it locked. Don't go nowhere. It's your girl, Shay McCray.